every minor issue he could find with my work. If I was 5 minutes late coming back from lunch, he'd make a note. If I questioned one of his new procedures, he'd write it up as resistance to change. If I suggested an improvement to a process, he'd frame it as failure to follow established protocols. I could see what was happening, but I didn't know how to fight it. I'd never been in trouble at work before, and suddenly I was getting written up for things that had never been issues in 24 years of employment. 2 months ago, I requested a meeting with Derek to address the situation directly. I told him I felt like I was being targeted and asked if there was something specific I could do to improve our working relationship. His response was chilling. "Robert, the truth is that you represent old thinking," he said. "Henderson needs to evolve to survive, and that means making some hard decisions about personnel. Employees who can't adapt to change become liabilities." I asked him if my job was in jeopardy, and he said, "That depends entirely on your ability to embrace the new direction of this company." I left that meeting knowing I was in trouble, but I didn't know what to do about it. I contacted our union representative, but Henderson had eliminated the union 5 years before Derek arrived. I considered talking to HR, but our HR department consisted of one person, Janet, who reported directly to Derek. 3 weeks ago, everything came to a head. Derek called me into his office on a Friday afternoon and told me that Henderson was restructuring the quality control department and my position was being eliminated. "This isn't personal, Robert," he said, not looking me in the eye. "It's just business. The company is moving in a different direction, and unfortunately, your role no longer fits our operational model." I asked about severance and was told I'd receive 2 weeks' pay, which was the minimum required by law. When I asked about my pension, Derek said that since my employment was being terminated before the 25-year vesting period, I wouldn't be eligible for benefits. "But I'm 3 weeks away from 25 years, I said. "I understand that, and I'm sorry about the timing," Derek replied. "But the decision was based on business needs, not your timeline." I knew he was lying. This wasn't about business needs or restructuring. This was about eliminating an expensive pension obligation by firing me just before I qualified for benefits. But instead of arguing or getting emotional, I just nodded and said, "You're absolutely right about company culture, Derek. Henderson has definitely changed." He looked relieved that I wasn't going to make a scene. "I'm glad you understand. We'll have Janet process your final paperwork on Monday." I cleaned out my desk that afternoon while Derek watched from his office. As I packed up 24 years' worth of personal items, I noticed Tyler sitting at a desk nearby, reviewing quality control manuals. When I asked him what he was working on, he said Derek had asked him to familiarize himself with the QC processes for a new project. It all clicked into place. They weren't eliminating my position, they were giving it to Tyler. Derek was firing me 3 weeks before my pension vested so he could hire his nephew into my job without having to pay my benefits. That weekend, I did some research. I looked up employment laws, pension regulations, and wrongful termination statutes. What I found was very interesting. First, firing someone specifically to prevent them from receiving pension benefits is illegal under federal law. It's called pension discrimination and it's taken